Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth with the Ellie's Handcrafted Jewelry, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create this adorable 2-stone wand pendant using a faceted 6mm stone and a Marquise shaped stone. You can also use a round cabochon and inverted teardrop as well, but this is what I'm using to demonstrate the design. If you're excited to get started, hit that like button, and if you'd like to stay up to date on the latest tutorials, hit the subscribe button and that notification bell. So let's get started. Alright, so for materials and tools, you're going to need a ruler, 5 segments of 20 gauge square wire. For measurements, be sure to check the description below. A Marquise shape or teardrop shaped cabochon, a 6 to 8mm faceted stone or round cabochon, about 6 inches of 20 to 21 gauge half round wire, and 28 gauge wire for weaving. As for the tools, you're going to need chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, flesh cutters, and it's not necessary, but I highly recommend some flat nose pliers. First step is to find the center of your wire. So I've done that with my ruler and marked the center here. I'm going to grab my half round wire and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it around all of the wires together at that center point. And I'm just going to use my chain nose pliers to kind of crimp that on the wire. It's going to make it easier just to hold it there. And from there I'm going to begin wrapping the half round around the square wire. Now once I finish wrapping the wire around, I'm going to go ahead and flatten that against the square wire with my flat nose pliers. I find that these work best for this, but you can use your chain nose pliers as well. Next I'm going to go ahead and pull these over just a tad and then trim them with my flesh cutters. And then I'll grab my flat nose pliers and flatten that down against the square wire. Now I'm going to use my flat nose pliers and just go just to the right of center of where those are and begin to bend it to create an angle. This is where the bottom of the stone is going to sit. So you want it to match just about that angle of the stone. Now once you're finished bending the wire, we're going to go ahead and lay the stone on a flat surface, lay it in the wire, and make sure that the wires are parallel to each other and begin to bend it around the stone, and then angle it up just slightly like so. And now we're going to do the same on the opposite side. And the wire should come together on top just like this. And from there we're going to grab our chain nose or flat nose pliers and I'm just going to give them a little bit of a wiggle at the top, just kind of help bend those wires and bend the other ones out just slightly so that they're more parallel to each other. From there I'm going to grab my 28 gauge weaving wire and I'm going to go ahead and pull back one of these back base wires just slightly so that I can insert my wire, and then I'm going to wrap it around that base wire 3 times. Now I'm going to just push down that wire just a tad so it sits underneath the straight portion. Hold these wires all next together and gather them together and wrap the weaving wire around all of them 3 times. One of the reasons I like using square wire for this project is because the wire sits next to each other really nicely, so it makes this part of the project much easier. Now once we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this weaving wire around that same back base wire 3 more times to secure the wrap. Now I'm just going to grab my chain nose pliers and scrunch that down just a little bit, so that way it's all sitting nicely together. And I'm just going to check and make sure that my stone still fits in the frame nicely. And now we're going to move on to the next step. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim this tail piece here. You can do that with your flesh cutters, or I'm going to use the pull and twist method. It just leaves a nice cleaner cut in comparison, I think. I'm going to go ahead and move these base wires here in the front out of the way and just leave the back 2 base wires so I can weave those together. Now I'm going to start a figure 8 weave down here, and I've already wrapped 3 times around one, so I'm going to go under and then over to around the next base wire a couple times. Then go under and around the next base wire, the one I started with, wrapping it around a couple more times. So 1 and then 2, and then scrunching the wires down as you go, and then moving over to the other side and wrapping around a couple of times. And you'll want to make sure that you don't pull the wires too tight, because we want to make sure that there is a nice gap in between those wires in a V shape. Now we're going to go ahead and check where the stone's at. We should have about maybe 1/8 of an inch or so of weave above that portion there. And then from this point I'm going to go ahead and install the Marquise shaped stone, just so that way the wires are more secure and stable as we're working with the project. And I'm going to do that by pulling this back wire out just slightly and then turning it in with my chain nose pliers to create like a prong to hold that back. I'm going to flip it over and then do the same on the opposite side, but more on the top, so that way it has more surface area covered, so that back doesn't come out. Now I've turned it around, I'm going to go ahead and create a little prong at the very bottom, wedging my pliers in as far as I can to the bottom, and then turning it out, flipping it over and doing the same on the opposite side, doing my best to be symmetrical. Now when it comes to being symmetrical, just take your time and increment by increment until you get it just where you want it. Now when you're done, you're going to notice that the top of the stone is still able to come out of the frame. Don't need to worry about that. We're going to get to that here in a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and finish by putting our stone at the top and just laying it there nice and neat into that little cradle that we made. And we're going to work with the back base wire next to it, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it around just slightly, kind of round it around the stone, and then angle it up just slightly with our thumb. And doing the same thing with the next wire next to it. The front wire is actually going to be the most important wire, as it's going to be the one that's really supporting the stone from the front. So that one we're going to be a little bit more exact with, making sure that it's sitting across the front, or at least the side of the stone there, using our chain nose pliers to kind of mark off the very top of it. Now we're going to do the same with the opposite side, starting with that back base wire and rounding it around, and then just angling it up slightly with our finger or thumb. Doing the same with the wire next to it. And then doing that with the front wire, making sure that it is sitting across the top of the stone, at least along the side. And grabbing our chain nose pliers, we're going to go ahead and turn that up, and it should just be right next to the other stone. At this point I'm grabbing my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of the wires are angled at the right spot, the same spot as the front, and they should sit next to each other nicely. From there I'm going to use my weaving wire, wrap it around all of these wires just like I did previously, making sure to close the gap there in the middle using my weaving wire. So it's going to require a little bit of added tension. Just be careful not to use too much tension, as you might break the wire or distort the base wires. Now to secure the wire, I'm going to wrap the weaving wire around the back base wire where I started. I'm going to do that 3 times. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pull these wires apart as they've kind of gotten jumbled together. I'm going to make sure the back 2 base wires are available, as these are going to be the ones we're going to weave together to create the bail, and make sure that the 6 are going to be portioned to the front, and we'll work with those later. And this is just kind of what the pendant's supposed to be looking like at this point. Now we're going to move on to creating the bail, and we're going to do another figure 8 weave to do that. So we're wrapping around the opposite side 2 times, making sure to scrunch the wires down and being careful not to pull the wires close together with our tension. Then under and over the next wire 2 times, and then under and over the next wire 2 times, and just repeating this pattern. Now once we've woven about 1/2 inch, I'm going to go ahead and stop there for the moment, grab my chain nose pliers, scrunch those down a little bit, and bend the wires inward. And we're going to go ahead and create almost like a diamond shape. And once we've created our little diamond shape, we're going to go ahead and here at the top, bend it out. So that way our wires can get in there as we weave along. This is what it should look like to create the bail. And we're going to continue the figure 8 weave. Now there is a trick to this. I hold my wire down with my index finger, the one that I'm not using to weave with, and hold the wire down as I'm weaving, and then adding tension only when I get to the spot that I need the wire to be. So holding the wire down with my finger and then doing the opposite side, being careful to add tension at the end, so that way I'm not distorting the wires. Once I finish my weave, I'm going to go ahead and do the pull and twist method to get the excess wire off. You can also use your flush cutters. And then I'm going to bend the bail backwards, like so, and to create that little loop there where the chain can go through. Now once I got the loop done, I'm going to go ahead and take these 2 base wires and wrap them across the front, like so. Wrapping them towards the back. And once I get into the back, I'm going to go ahead and take my flush cutters and trim off the excess. And then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck in those ends. Now once the bail is complete, it's on to the fun swirly accents. So I'm going to go ahead and separate these base wires to make sure that they're all sitting next to each other. This one I'm going to put off to the right, and I'm going to grab the one that's more towards the middle, so this 3rd one over to the left from the right side, and I'm going to go ahead and bend it a little bit, overextend it to the left, and then use my thumb to gently round it and then swirl it downward. Now once I swirled it, I'm going to go ahead and turn the pendant over, and then I'm going to wrap the wire around the back and then down and around towards the middle of the pendant, and then I'm going to wrap it around another time. And once I've wrapped it a couple times, I'm going to take my flush cutters and I'm going to trim it off and tuck the end in the back. Now using my chain nose pliers to tuck in that end. Now I'm going to grab the wire to the left of that one and do the same thing with my thumb, kind of giving it a little bit of a swirl, and then following that same swirl down like I did before and across the back. Now I'm wrapping the wire around the midsection of the pendant like before, kind of overlapping a little bit as I go, so overlapping with the first wrap and then across the stone with the second wrap. Trimming the wire and then tucking it in with my chain nose pliers. Again, doing the same thing with the wire to the left of the previous wire, wrapping it across the front and then down across the back following the previous wire, then overlapping the first wrap and then going over the top with the next wrap. And at this point you can see it's starting to cover the top of the stone, which is good. This is going to help keep the stone in place. Grabbing our flesh cutters and trimming it off, just making sure that there's a nice place to tuck in that excess wire with our chain nose pliers. And again, grabbing the wire next to that one on the left and doing the same thing as the previous 3 wires. Turning the pendant over and putting that wire there in the back. Gonna trim it with flesh cutters and tuck it in. Now we're going to grab this wire on the far right side and we're going to go ahead and swoop it downward as well. This one is going to stick out a little bit more, but that's going to add a little bit more of an accent piece to the pendant. Just take your time with these swirly accents. If you want them to look a certain way, just keep working with them until you kind of get them where you want. But just be careful as you work with wire. It will work harden, so it's going to make it harder to work with and the swirl is more difficult. So just keep that in mind as you're working with the wire. Now this far left piece I'm going to go ahead and trim, as I couldn't figure out what to do with it, so I'm trimming it off with my flesh cutters, and then I'm going to go ahead and tuck it into the bail portion with my chain nose pliers. Now, as far as this bottom wire, if you wanted to, you could do another swirl or twist and then secure it to the frame, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it to the back, cut it off, and trim it. And it's good just to check the pendant over and make sure that nothing's sticking out, kind of like these pieces here in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck that in nice and neat so that way it's not sticking out. And here's the finished piece. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to share your piece, you're welcome to join the Facebook group where there's a place to share, learn, and grow, as well as give and receive encouragement. And if you found this tutorial helpful, hit that like button and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the latest videos. Hope you have a great day!